I'm going to try my best to keep not only my identity anonymous, but even some of the parks I worked at unknown and undisclosed for the time being. I don't want my information connected to my past work history at all, just for my own protection. Not to mention, any previous colleagues could easily trace this back to me if I opened up on too much information. I worked for a park ranger service for well over 20 years, mainly all around Colorado State. I've been a part of and worked on numerous search and rescue missions, and have just done my normal rounds as a patrol officer. You bet that I've had my hands full in things you probably wouldn't even believe. Nothing like seeing a portal, or demons coming out. Nothing that absurd. But I've seen things that I can't explain with my own eyes, or the circumstances that I found myself in. Today, I would like to share with you a few of the strange things that has happened to me while working as a ranger. The very first one that comes to mind is also the first in the chronological order of my history. Again, for the sake of anonymity, I won't tell you exactly what river, but it's one of the many main rivers that runs throughout the entirety of the state of Colorado. We had a hiker go missing. Search and rescue turned up unsuccessful in its attempt to rescue this hiker. In fact, no remains, nothing were ever found, and the whereabouts of that hiker remained unknown. About 7 or 8 months later, since this occurred in January of that year, now going to July or August, and people were reporting seeing in the evening and nighttime a miscellaneous random cloaked figure. This person or thing was seen to wear all black in like a hooded cloak, walking around the park. Nobody stopped them and asked them who they were or where they were going. I guess they were probably too scared. But I myself saw the same figure multiple times, sometimes during the evening and sometimes at night. On numerous occasions, I tried stopping them, but they always seemed to vanish out of thin air, like I was seeing some sort of hallucination or possibly an apparition that looked like a full physical being. Now, here is where the story I just told you and this black hooded figure tie in together. One day, I was doing my rounds along this river when I see this figure walking out in a part of the path that we're not supposed to go, at least for tourists. Us rangers can. Determined to get a hold of whoever this cloaked figure was that had been somehow managing to elude every ranger there, I pursued him or her for about a good mile or so, keeping about 200 yards behind him or her, watching them as they seamlessly crossed this very rocky and hard terrain, almost like it was nothing. I followed this figure all the way, for maybe 2 miles at most, to a large clearing in the woods, where I found a tattered backpack that had been severely weathered and worn out. Well, turns out, the backpack actually belonged to the girl who had gone missing back in January of that same year. A follow-up investigation was sparked because of the newfound evidence, and her remains were actually found probably within 50 feet of that clearing. There was nothing but bones left, and she had actually been buried about 3 feet under the ground. No signs of her ever actually being buried, though. It's as if she had just been buried in the ground forever ago, and just completely dissipated. Being in the ground for that long, you would see traces of other things, like clothing, or jewelry, or anything else. But she was so badly decomposed, being just bones, and even the bones were in such old condition. It was as if she had been buried there for hundreds of years. A DNA analysis proved that it was indeed her, and further refinement with dental records also proved it was her. But nobody could explain why she was buried naked, or why she was so badly decomposed in such a short amount of time. Which means that whoever this hooded or cloaked figure was a prime suspect. And maybe it was intentional, maybe it wasn't. But this figure led us to this girl's remains. Police and all of us rangers from then on out were on high alert, thinking this person Whoever they were, walking around the parks were very dangerous. And what's even worse, this cloaked figure was being seen all around the state, not just in this park, which means that it could have been a cult, more than one person. But by that fall, a month or two later, all sightings of this mysterious cloaked person completely vanished, ceasing completely. Nobody's entirely sure if that figure had anything to do with the murder or the remains of that woman, but after that, we never saw them again, have no explanation for why or what they were. Many, including I, believe it was a person or a group of individuals responsible, a part of a massive cult here in the state of Colorado, also responsible for many sacrifices and murders, which we also believe is responsible for many missing persons. Which brings me to my next story. I remember the year. It was 1999, the summertime, and a man who was an avid fisherman and outdoorsman. His first name was Bill. I won't say his last name. He had gone missing under mysterious circumstances. His family was camping in one of the larger state parks in the state. One morning, the family woke up to find him not in his tent, his sleeping bag vacant. Everything he owned and had was still right where he had left it when he had fallen asleep. But he was missing. No trace of him anywhere. Even though there was an outhouse nearby and a bathroom, nothing. Nobody had reported seeing him. No traces, no footprints, nothing. When there was a search and rescue put on, dogs could only trace his smell about a half a mile into the woods, and then abruptly stopped at a large incline, about a 300-foot incline to be exact. Then, about a month or so goes by, and I hear from a fellow colleague that they had found a severed hand, knifed into a tree. So imagine a hand, severed, and then a knife placed through the palm, right into the tree. Once found, DNA tests were ran to see and determine who it could have belonged to. Everything pointed back to Bill, which again reopened yet another investigation. But why? Why would his severed hand be 7 miles north of where he disappeared? It made no sense. The person who found it was a lone hiker on a solo 50-mile hike journey through the Colorado state. And after thorough investigation of the surrounding areas, of not only where Bill disappeared, but where his severed hand was found, there was no evidence, no blood trail, even no scent trail. The dogs refused to go past the 100-foot perimeter of where his hand was, and they acted very strange, which is very weird. Even the knife that was found going through his hand into the tree was also tested, but no DNA would come up. Only Bill's DNA. It's yet another gruesome mystery that still remains unsolved. Oh, and another horrifying detail that I did not want to forget. While this specific investigation was going on, and I've only heard this a handful of times, this being one of those cases, keep in mind that when researching and when out on the field, it was daylight savings time. Sundown wasn't till around 7:38 p.m. at the time. But somehow, when they had found the hand and were thoroughly searching the surrounding areas, it got dark at about 4:30, 5 p.m. Only in that area though, because when radioing away to a completely different area, maybe 50 miles, the sun was still out. Something unexplainable was causing darkness, or the illusion that the sun had gone down. I understand if you read this and probably think I'm crazy, but I'm telling you first-hand accounts from not only me, but my colleagues as well. Strange, unknown experiences nobody can really explain off. The only thing we can do is just be completely baffled by what we've all gone through. Which leads me to my third and final experience that I will share with you today. This was right around 2007. I was down in the southern portion of the state. Again, I won't name the nearest town, but it's not a small town. And I was doing a casual patrol when I began to smell a very strange smell. It was kind of like a cross between wet dog, death, and a very thick, musty odor. My first thought was that a pack of wolves or something had killed a large elk, but the odor just kept growing in intensity. Then, I began to feel like something was watching me just beyond the trees. Feeling immediate danger, I grabbed hold of my pistol and began scouring the area just in case I might be under attack. God only knows if there's somebody that hides in the woods that will try to attack you. That was my first thought. Then, as I'm looking, I see this large brown figure standing about 2 trees in, just beyond the tree line. And from where I'm at, I'm gonna guess this figure was easily 8 or 9 feet tall, massive, covered in hair, and poking its head out beside the tree to look at me. For about 2 seconds, I saw this animal or creature's face, and it was really, really ugly. Let me just stop and say that I've heard multiple accounts of Bigfoot. I've read stories, I've heard people talk and show me casts. I've even seen the Patterson film. I feel I have a general idea of what they should look like. But this thing that I saw looked nothing like a hominid, or any sort of Neanderthal or advanced ape. Its face was almost protruding outward, and had a short, flat snout. Think of like a bulldog. And had large, nasty, gangly teeth sticking all out of its mouth. It almost kind of reminded me of some kind of troll or orc from like maybe the Lord of the Rings, except covered in thick brown hair all over its body. The eyes were a dull red, very dark, very set in its skull, and it had massive long claws at the end of each of its fingers as it grabbed a hold of the tree and watched me. It didn't look like it was angry or aggressive, just very intently watching me, as if it was waiting for me to see what I would do or how I'd react. As I'm looking at whatever animal this is, or whatever it could possibly be, I keep hold of my pistol, because, frankly, I have no idea whatever this thing is capable of, and I was not taking any chances getting ready to find out. After maybe a few more seconds of intently watching me, it pulls itself back behind the tree, completely concealing itself from all visibility. I keep my pistol at the ready, just in case whatever unknown animal this is decides to act on instinct and attack. Maybe 20 seconds goes by, but when you're in that continuous state of fear and paranoia and anxiety, 20 seconds seems like 5 minutes. Everything kind of just went back to being calm again. Noises returned around me. The smell kind of dissipated, including the carcass death smell, and I never saw the figure move anywhere. I did investigate, and I never saw it behind the tree, even when I looked. So I have no idea where it could have gone. There's no secret trap door. There's nowhere that it could have gone without me seeing it. So where exactly did it go from being behind the tree? It's like it just vanished. But I'll tell you what, after that little stint in that portion of the trail, I more than had my fill for the day. And so I got out of there, even though the sounds had returned, and the smells had dissipated, and the feeling of being hunted was gone. I heavily opted not to take that same route again the following day. I want you to keep in mind that these are only a handful of experiences that I've dealt with personally. I've had more. I've had colleagues who've dealt with stuff that are far more terrifying, far more strange, and far worse. Maybe sometime I'll talk to them and have them tell their own stories. But for now, I'll just leave you with these. I hope you find them entertaining. My goal is that whoever you read this to, or if you do decide to come forward with this and go public, share this information with your own audience. My hope is that it will help others go public with their own experiences, instead of fearing ridicule, being paranoid by what others may think or judge. It's best to get the truth out there, and let people know that there's things going on, things even as a ranger I couldn't explain, that I was told to not talk about, or write off completely. I've kept so much of this information suppressed for such a long time. You probably wouldn't even believe the sleepless nights that I've gone through, the many bottles of liquor I've drank down just to process, to keep this information subsided But maybe this information getting out there will benefit for the better. I sure hope it does. As always, let's keep in touch. I would love to share more encounters with you. I got a bunch, ranging from all different varieties. Just let me know. If your audience enjoys these, well, I'll be more inclined to share more.